A pretty, but very poorly dressed girl, about 25 years old, was cleaning her house. Although it was not hers. This dilapidated house, occupied by Sofia Molinez without permission, was the only alternative to living on the street. But she once had a very nice house, left to her by her late mother. Sofia never knew her father. No one has the insurance that I will never be behind bars or beg in alleys, even if they are a completely law-abiding citizen. Sofia never had a problem with respecting the law, but as an unsophisticated girl she managed to meet a notorious thief. Thanks to her fiancé, Sofia ended up in prison. Ignacio occasionally committed thefts and took his trophies home, and one fine day he was arrested. Then Ignacio acted in a completely ungentlemanly manner. He singled out Sofia as his co-conspirator, she who never touched another person's property in her life. And no matter how much she tried to dissuade the employees of the competent authorities from the contrary, they imprisoned them both. Moreover, according to the court decision, the house was confiscated. The girls at the colony assured her that this was already too much. Especially when it comes to an orphan who, after being released, will have nowhere to go. And what about re-education? Well, will she leave the colonies and where will she go? Unless, on a slippery slope, and this time for real. That's right, if they want to finish a person off, let them do it all the way. There are a lot of such cases. The prisoner is released and has nowhere to go. There is only one way, back to prison. At least, there is some roof over the head. Well, how can I put it? Said Dona Catalina, a tall, gold-toothed, older woman in the cell, thoughtfully. Someone must have had their eye on your house. Or maybe that's why you were imprisoned. And it wasn't possible to appeal? With what dough? Sofia smiled bitterly. That's what I'm talking about. If there is a person, there will be an article of law, but also a lot of other filth. Without money your word means nothing. But if I were you, after I got out of prison, I would fight for a roof over my head. This is pointless, sighed Sofia. No. I'll go out and start life from scratch. And let this house stay in the past. You're crazy, said Malvina, shaking her head, a shaven bald prisoner. You are giving up what belongs to you. Calm down, shouted Dona Catalina. Maybe Sofia is right, why drag the dirt from the old life into the new one? She's still young. God willing, she'll have a house and everything else. The main thing is not to attract any bastards into your life. Sometimes, Sofia wondered, if Dona Catalina is so intelligent, what is she doing here? However, she knew very well that in the colonies it was not customary to ask such questions. And was she herself a fool? Not at all. Only love was, because she was there. Nobody offended Sofia in prison. Well, at first they tried to bully her, but the girl behaved properly, thanks to the series about employees of the competent authorities, which she watched before. As a result, the cellmates accepted her in their little world and even took care of her in every possible way, as she was the youngest among them. Sofia learned to sew well and even became the production leader. The leader's status did Sofia a favor. It played an important role in her release on parole. Instead of 5 years, she spent 2 years in the colony. Get drunk for us, asked Malvina. And God willing, we'll see each other. Let's meet. Sofia responded cheerfully. Well, Molinez, are you going out to freedom with a clear conscience? Said the head of the colony with a good-natured smile. If you get caught again, I'll beat you myself. Good luck. Goodbye, Molinez. Freedom is, of course, good. But there is nowhere to live. Much changed in his native village in the last 3 years. And first of all, of course, the houses. Someone added a second floor and someone built large chalets. However, among all this splendor, there was a place for a poor convict orphan. At the very edge of the street was a rather ugly house, but it appeared to be a whole house. Sofia went inside and, after examining it, came to the conclusion that the house was quite suitable for living. By the way, in the garden there was an apple tree, which Sofia loved to grow in her house. Remembering her home, tears came to the girl's eyes, but she said to herself, it's all in the past. Look to the future. And Sofia slowly but surely began to forge a brighter future. In addition to the apple tree, the garden grew currants, sea buckthorn, raspberries, and a loquat tree. I'm definitely not going to starve, Sofia thought with satisfaction. This beginning of a new life suited her very well. It would only be necessary to question the neighbors. Wouldn't it turn out that the owners would turn up? Is someone there? she shouted as she approached the neighbor's house. Sophia saw the curtain move and shouted again. Is anyone there? A woman, unknown to Sophia, came out of the house with a rude face, dressed in a lightly painted robe. She looked to be about 50 years old. What do you want? Asked the woman, not very friendly, looking at her in a suspicious way. I wanted to ask about this house, Sophia explained, waving her hand in the direction of the house that was being used as a shelter. Let's hope it's temporary. Doesn't anyone live there? And why are you interested? I want to live there. Are you serious? The neighbor asked suspiciously. Quite a lot, confirmed Sophia. Don't you have a place to live? The woman guessed. No. And you, by any chance, are not from there? He did not specify from where, but it was not necessary to do so. Everything was clear. And if so, then what? Sophia asked with a challenge. Are you afraid I'll steal something from you? P.F. Wait a bit, said the neighbor quietly. When I was young, I was there too. I was dumb. Well, it's a thing of the past. What's your name? Sophia. Well, my name is Martina. Nice to meet you. We can be on a first-name basis. And for starters, let's go inside, Sophia. Or the local gossips will soon wring your neck. Eat something at least and we'll pick you up some clothes. There are indeed good people in our world, thought the girl, and considered the beginning of a new life a good sign. Having eaten a bowl of rich soup, Sophia asked, So, what about this house? Oh, with the house. Martina remembered. Come and live. Here lived a family with many children, so the state allocated them housing. And no one cares about this rotten thing. Anyway, it's going to rot soon. Well, at least it will help you, and that's good. I can let you into my house too. I won't take money. We, who were there, must help each other. No, thank you. I found a way out myself. Well, you're fine yourself. If you need anything, let me know. Maybe you need some water, come on. Let's sit and talk. Maybe you want to spend the night here? Are you tired from the road? Well, yes, smiled Sophia. You see. I'll heat your bath, you'll wash, you'll sleep in a clean bed. Sounds thought Sophia. Good. I will come, he promised. Sophia began to clean with enthusiasm. The girl was so inspired by thoughts of the upcoming new life that she hardly felt tired. Having cleaned up the kitchen, she decided that was enough for today and went to spend the night at the neighbor's house. The next morning, Sophia, after picking up a couple of bottles of water from Martina, went back to cleaning. There were 2 rooms in the house, and while cleaning the second one, Sophia found a military passbook among the piles of garbage. Having carefully studied the document, the girl noticed that it had been issued recently. The owner can look for it, thought Sophia. The document is important. Without it, you can't even find a job. The girl decided to take her military ID card to the recruiting office. She didn't need it, let the military take care of that. In fact, Sophia did not want to get involved with the services at all. Needless to say, she suffered from these people. Despite the well-known fact in her biography, Sophia respected the law and went to the recruiting office. Instinct did not deceive the girl. In the military office, they were not happy with her. Moreover, the employees began to bully her. Show your passport, one of them said condescendingly. And just at that moment the military commissioner arrived on time. Everyone who knew him could well describe him as corrupt and rotten to the core. What is it? He asked. Here it is, the girl has a business, said the clerk. What is the deal? Asked the military commissary. Your document? Ah, miss, do you have a release certificate? The military commissar looked at Sophia as if she were a pile of a very unappetizing substance. She had already regretted coming here 100 times, but there was nowhere to retreat to. The military commissar continued to mock. What is she doing here? She needs a man after prison? So your potential suitors are repeat offenders in the colonies. Then, miss, you've come to the wrong address. The girl thought that enough was enough. Yes, she was in jail, but this did not give the military commissar the right to talk like that. In the end, Sophia came for business, and not because, as he said, she needs a man after jail. I brought a military ID, the girl said decisively. I did what I had to do. Having said these words, Sophia almost forcibly placed her military ID in the hands of the military commissar. What a proud girl, he smiled, not only feeling the master of the situation, but frankly delighting in this state. The military commissary looked back at Sophia's find and smiled again. Is there nothing else to do but carry other people's papers? The girl thought, a person who breaks the law is bad, but the one who acts in accordance with the law is also bad. What kind of people are they? Sophia was already tired of looking at this smug face, and was about to turn and leave. And as soon as she took a step towards the door, a general entered. What is it? He asked sternly. The military commissar changed his face and began to flatter. Well, we are here. The girl came here, so to speak. Sophia felt amused. Just a few seconds ago, this obviously vile man had mocked her, and now he looked like he was about to pee his pants. Needless to say, Alfredo Ortega really looked menacing. What are you mumbling about? Shouted the general. And what do you have in your hand? Come on, show me. The military commissary timidly gave the general a military ID, and everyone saw how stunned he was. Mr. Ortega, are you feeling sick? One of the employees asked, frightened. All is well with me, assured the general, and turned to Sophia. And you, my dear, where did you find it? In an abandoned house, the girl muttered in fright. Among the pile of garbage. Among the pile of garbage, Mr. Ortega repeated and invited Sophia into his office. Sit down, beautiful, said the general, pointing to a large leather chair. The girl obeyed and the general spoke. The guy who possessed the military ID turned out to be the son of a friend of the general, a successful businessman. Moreover, the general was the godfather of the owner of the document. The guy disappeared a year ago. The search turned up nothing. That's right, Mr. Ortega said thoughtfully. I myself am a solitary person, but my friend Federico is a family man. And such a misfortune happened in the family. The family that is good and kind. Sophia listened politely without interrupting. She did not understand why the general was telling all this to an unknown girl, and even to some convict. However, unexpectedly for herself, Sophia felt sympathy for this imperious, but, apparently, very kind person in her soul. And the girl thought that her new life begins very interestingly. Would you like some tea? Said the general. I bought cookies. The saleswoman assured me they were fresh. I cannot deny, Sophia replied unexpectedly. She did not want to leave Don Alfredo's office. And, apparently, he didn't want to finish his conversation either. Well, he was a lonely person. That's good. He rejoiced. The general put tea in cups, took cookies from the cupboard, and continued his story. Many years ago, Federico Lopez and I served together. He saved my life. Well, then I stayed in the military and he started his business. He was always smart. His head is brilliant, and he has a commercial streak. Not like me, a little soldier. He's no trooper, Sophia objected bravely. I think he's also very smart. Well, thank you, beautiful, smiled Don Alfredo. And if it's not a secret, how did you end up in jail? There is no secret. Sophia sighed and told her story to the general. Something is wrong with this confiscation, the general said. Do you want me to fix it and get your house back? No, no, Sophia shook her head. I decided at the colony that I would start a new life, and there would be nothing old in it. And at home too. Let it be the fault of those who deprived me of a roof over my head. Tell me, are you really not to blame? The general had many acquaintances who worked in colonies, and they all spoke of people who claimed their innocence. Well, they probably were. True, they were pitifully few. Something told him that this girl really wasn't to blame for anything. But for some reason, Don Alfredo simply needed to hear this from Sophia. Of course, I'm to blame, she confirmed easily. I am to blame for having trusted a scoundrel. After tea, the general, accompanied by his entourage, went to the same abandoned house where Sophia was staying. After surveying neighbors, it was learned that a young man was here a year ago. He was pale and thin, said Martina. There were always two strangers with him, recalled another neighbor, who lived across the street from the abandoned house. Two very nasty guys. They also said they were brothers of the boy, Martina recalled. Well, the situation is clear, the general concluded. Apparently, they kept him here. What filthy bastards! Thank you, ladies. But why did they keep the poor boy? A tall, broad-shouldered subordinate of the general raised his voice. And where did they take him afterwards, and is he still alive? And this is what needs to be found out. Don Alfredo said decisively and called the father of the missing boy. After explaining the situation to his friend and disconnecting, the general told Sophia, "And you, beautiful, I thank you very much. Can I help you with some soldiers, as a reward?" "What do I need them for?" He frowned, remembering the arrogant military commissar. "Well, I mean that they will repair everything quickly here." Don Alfredo smiled, correctly interpreting Sophia's confusion. "They will remove the garbage and everything else." No, he shrugged. "I'm happy to clean here. It's just that I do it for myself." "Well, nothing happens, as you say," replied the general and left. Suddenly Sophia became sad. The affair was over. As soon as there was a change in her life, it was over. But the girl didn't even suspect that everything was just beginning, and the variety she needed was just around the corner. A week later, an expensive car pulled up in front of Sophia's house. A slim and rather handsome young man got out of the car. In the boy's hands was a bouquet of pale pink roses. "Hello," greeted the young woman. "Hi," Sophia replied, confused, and wondered if the guy had the wrong address. "I came to you." He dispelled the girl's last doubts. "I am the owner of the military book you found." "Is that so?" murmured Sophia. "It's clear." The girl had never met a boy like that, and now she felt like a complete fool. Her first love at school was her classmate Nando. Relationships with him were purely platonic. And then there was Ignacio. That's right, Sophia's private life counted for no one else. The guy driving a beautiful silver foreign car was so well groomed that Sophia felt uncomfortable, as if she was ugly. And the young man looked at Sophia appreciatively and, offering her a bouquet of roses, said, "How nice to see that the girl who helped me is not only conscious, but also very beautiful." "Beautiful?" The girl thought skeptically. "Are you kidding? Will you invite me to the house?" asked the boy with a smile. "By the way, my name is Alejandro. What's yours?" "Sophia," she replied, embarrassed. "I just don't have anything to treat you with." It wasn't just the food. The unexpected guest was clearly used to different surroundings, and Sophia was terribly embarrassed. Although, on the other hand, he was unlikely to expect silkscreen prints and paintings on the walls. "I have a treat with me, so I see no reason to refuse hospitality," Alexander replied cheerfully, which confused the girl even more. However, seeing the expression on her face, he hastened to add, "I'm joking." The guest began to unpack food packages, among which Sophia saw a bottle of wine and a small cake. The landlady put the kettle on for tea. Since there was no kettle, Sophia used one given to her by Martina. It seemed that Alejandro was not at all embarrassed by the situation at Sophia's house. "Well, thank God." They sat down to dinner, and the son of the general's friend continued his story. "About a year ago, my father's enemies robbed me and took me captive. Here, in this house. They wanted to bother my father. And the military book was in my pocket. Here it fell out. It's a miracle your torturers didn't see it," Sophia said. "There's no telling how hard they would look for you and if they would find you." "Yes," nodded Alejandro. "And when you found my military ID, these monsters were identified by their car number. One of the neighbors thought to write it down just in case. Such are our vigilant citizens. They were late in their surveillance," said the girl. "Well," he held out his hands. "Better late than never. But, of course, it's a shame he missed the year." "And what did you do before? Before you were kidnapped?" asked Sophia. "He worked for my father's company." Sophia felt like she was dreaming and didn't want to wake up. Everything was too perfect to be real. A handsome young man in a beautiful car brought so many goodies and, at the end, a bouquet of flowers. Sophia was already in her third decade and she had never been given flowers before. Such a thing would never have occurred to Ignacio, and where she was before, no flowers are given there. They sat for another 40 minutes, chatted about various nonsense, and Alexander left, leaving an exceptionally pleasant impression of himself. The next day he returned. He brought Sophia some food and household utensils. They drank tea. "Now let's freshen up, and I'll help you fix up the house," Alexander announced solemnly. Yes, I would do it myself. I don't want to hear anything, he replied decisively. It's not a woman's business. Is that so? Sophia laughed. It's nothing. But it's more fun to do it together. I have nothing to say to that. After the meal, Sophia began to clean the table. Alejandro began to help her, and somehow it happened that their fingers touched. Suddenly, the girl felt herself being burned by this accidental touch. Sophia hurried to get away from him, but the boy grabbed her by the arms and began to kiss her. Anyway, 3 years of the colony made itself felt, the girl thought, and said aloud, "No, don't." "But why?" He whispered. "We hardly know each other." "No, it shouldn't be like that." "And I think that's how it should be," he said. "So spontaneous and so beautiful." And no, Sophia resisted not too resolutely. Yes. On that day, they did not leave the house. Alejandro came several more times, and then suddenly disappeared. Sophia was going crazy. A week passed and the beloved did not make himself felt. "He probably thought I was too available," he sighed. "He toyed with me and abandoned me. Well, I deserve it." Sophia and Martina sat on the terrace and drank the tincture prepared by the woman. In fact, Sophia was indifferent to alcohol, but today she wanted to drink unconscious. "Pour me more," she ordered in a drunken voice. "My friend, don't speed up so much." Martina shook her head. "What about the new life?" "But there is no new life," sighed Sophia. "There are only unpleasant men. They all need one thing. Well, and whoever doesn't need it, will be sarcastic, like this one, like him, a military commissar, hey. Well, what's this got to do with anything?" The neighbor was surprised. "And even though they're all the same, they're animals with horns, that's who they are." Martina laughed. That night, Sophia did what she had planned. That is, she drank herself into unconsciousness. The mistress of the house took Sophia to the sofa and carefully covered her with a blanket. Poor girl, she thought, so young, but she had suffered enough. Saw the house that once belonged to Sophia. Very nice, with a large and beautiful garden. And now it had become a real palace. Apparently, someone really seized the opportunity, thought Martina. She already knew how justice is done. It is not enough to imprison a person, you must also crush him. That is, if possible, to profit from the misfortune of others. If there is a person, there will always be an article of law. Fortunately, there are more than enough people like that in the country. People like her. And like Sophia. Martina looked at the sleeping neighbor and went out onto the terrace. Taking the last shot, the woman cleared the table and also went to bed. Waking up the next morning with a severe headache, dry mouth, and a bad mood, Sophia promised herself never to get drunk like that again. "Did you wake up, drunk and crazy?" asked Martina with a smile. "Very well. I cooked such cabbage soup, you will immediately come to your senses." Having tasted the neighbor's cabbage soup, Sophia really felt much better. "Well, I'll be going." He prepared to go home. "Come on," Martina sighed. 3 more days passed. Sophia already accepted the fact that Alejandro was no longer coming. Well, God bless him, she thought, it was all my fault. Where does he come from and where do I come from? On the 4th day, Sophia was picking apples. The girl decided to cook compote. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a car approaching. Who knows, who could it be? "Miss." She heard a familiar voice. In the first second, Sophia decided she was having an auditory hallucination. But nothing of the sort. It was Alejandro. He was wearing a blue polo shirt, carelessly unbuttoned, and jeans of the same color. God, he's amazing. With a touch of pride, thought the girl. Probably, I should be offended now that she didn't make herself felt, thought Sophia. In any case, so advised the authors of articles in women's magazines. Or is it not worth it? Well, Sophia had no experience with men, and she had no idea how to behave. And while the girl was thinking, Alejandro said, "Sophia, sorry, I disappeared. I was on a business trip. It wasn't until I left that I realized I should have bought you a cell phone." The girl's heart was relieved. It turns out that Alexander does not consider her too available, and all will be well with them. "Sophia, I want to invite you for a walk," Alejandro announced solemnly. "For a walk?" Sophia asked, confused. "Yes, take a walk." "Well, I don't know," he shrugged with a smile. I hadn't expected it. I didn't expect what? It seemed to me that we became friends. Me too, but. What's up? Sophia was embarrassed to say that it was all about clothes. She was never spoiled by nice things and didn't understand brands, but she understood that Alejandro's jeans cost about half a living wage. Sophia in Martina's solid, but not at all fancy, printed dress looked ridiculous and pathetic. At least she thought so. Alejandro, not knowing what to think, asked, "Did I make you sad in any way?" "No, no," Sophia hastened to assure. "I'm not dressed right." Alejandro had heard this phrase more than once, and it meant only one thing: the girl needed to change clothes. But that didn't seem to be the case here. Sophia definitely had nothing to wear, and to understand this, it didn't take much intelligence. Her godfather Alfredo told her where this girl came from. "The problem, thank God, is solved," said Alexander. "Now we will go to the store and choose something for you." "No, it's not worth it." Sophia got scared. "It's just that it's indecent?" Alejandro asked with a smile. "I'm not going to argue. Then when you find a job and you'll pay me back, shall we meet?" "Well, we are left," he sighed, thinking that it is unlikely that he will be able to get a job in the foreseeable future. A couple of attempts have already been made. They were unsuccessful, and Sophia perfectly understood the reason. "It's a deal then. Oh, by the way," Alexander remembered something and ran to the car. He came back with a bouquet. "This is for you." "Oh, Fox!" exclaimed the girl. "Well, yes. Well, shall we go to the store?" "Well, what do I do with you?" She sighed derisively. Choosing a nice mint-colored t-shirt, cute jeans and stylish blue sneakers, they left the mall. Across the street from the mall was a cell phone store. "Shall we go?" Alejandro offered with a smile. "To avoid further embarrassment?" I don't know," Sophia said, slurring her words. "It's expensive." "No more expensive than money. And we need to keep in touch." As a result, they bought a good cell phone and all the necessary related products. Although the girl was embarrassed, Alejandro saw how happy she was. And if Sophia was happy, so was he. It never occurred to the young people that they were being watched. When Isabel heard that her fiancé Alejandro had returned, she didn't believe it right away. Usually, after a month, few people believe that the missing person will be found. And after a year. The first month the girl was very distressed. Needless to say, Alejandro Lopez was an enviable groom. Son of one of the richest people in the city, and he himself holds an important position in his father's company. Yes, you can dream of such a boyfriend. In addition, Isabel got along well with her younger sister, Sylvia. Also a nice bonus. After making sure that Alejandro was really alive and well, the girl went straight to his office. "Well, hello, prisoner," Isabel greeted cheerfully. "Hello," the boy replied politely, but obviously indifferently. You're kind of boring," the girl puffed out her lips whimsically. Alejandro used to like this. A woman and a girl in one person, there's something about it. But now, after meeting Sophia, he saw many things differently, including Isabel's manipulations. "So, I didn't come back from the resort after all," Alexander smiled sadly. "Why should it be funny?" "My poor darling," sang the ex-lover and, approaching Alejandro, she took his face in her hands and whispered, "Well, nothing, we'll fix it. Do you remember how I was able to comfort you?" "Only me." "Isabel, stop," she replied sharply. "I have a lot of work to do. You used to always find time for me," the girl's voice trembled. "The question is, why did I stay faithful for a whole year?" Alejandro laughed. His friend Pablo had already told him how she remained faithful. No, Alejandro did not condemn Isabel. She is young and, be that as it may, she is a very pretty girl. Besides, I thought Alejandro was not alive. All this was understandable to him. So why be hypocritical? "Isabel, don't do it," Alejandro said with a sigh. "I am quite capable of appreciating such dedication, but I will not tolerate lies." "I see you understand what I mean." "Alejandro." Isabel made the face of an offended child. Her lips were trembling so much that she looked like she was about to cry. But Alejandro already knew that Isabel was not going to do any of this. It was just a way to manipulate him, which, unfortunately, was no longer working. Isabel, I'm sorry, I really have a lot of work to do, he said quietly but decisively. It was nice to see you. The girl walked out of the office, defiantly clicking her heels. If Alejandro thinks I'll give up easily like this, he's sorely mistaken. Isabel, without delay, called Sylvia. I can't really say anything, Sylvia shook her head. But it looks like it was in jail. Are you sure? Exclaimed Isabel. Despite the forced breakup of a year into the relationship, the news that Alejandro had another girlfriend took her by surprise. Isabel was sure the groom would come running to her with a snap of his fingers. As it turned out, he didn't, but that's half the problem. But the fact that he had traded her for one who was in jail was already an insult. Honestly, if Alejandro had preferred her friend, Isabel wouldn't have been so upset. In any case, she would understand. He wondered what this convict had that Isabel didn't. Or maybe Sylvia is wrong? I told you that I really don't know anything. It seems that she found my brother's military card, and he went to her to thank her, answered Sylvia. Well, that makes a difference, doesn't it? One way or another, Isabel should make sure of the truth. Wow, there are more questions than answers, Isabel thought with annoyance. And I decided to take action. When she got home, without delay, she called a private detective. The love relationship is obvious, if it were not for one but, said the private detective. Her fiancé and that girl spent the night, after which she did not show up at his house for the next few days. He got her and broke up with her, Isabel thought with a triumphant smile. But on Saturday, when she arrived at Alejandro's, an unpleasant surprise awaited her. He was getting into his Jeep. The boy had a beautiful bouquet in his hands, and Isabel understood perfectly for whom it was intended. It was then that the idea of following the groom matured, while she continued to consider him hers. And Isabel rolled behind Alejandro. My God, what a mess! Isabel was horrified when she saw the house where Sofia lived. And Alejandro goes here? I wonder what the torturers did to him. But well, it doesn't matter. Now the main thing is to eliminate the rival. Isabel was not thinking of any physical violence. Although, if everything was completely useless, she would be ready to go all the way. She thought of something unoriginal. To begin with, it will simply come to this lady to talk. And if she does not understand, well, then we go to extreme measures. Isabel decided that the best time to visit was Sunday. Alejandro will be at work, so no one will interfere with them. Hello, is anyone there? Isabel shouted. He stood in the middle of the yard, looking around the yard curiously. Needless to say, the house looked more like a barn than a dwelling, but it will do for a convict. But the garden was not bad at all. There was an apple tree, a hawthorn tree, raspberries, currants. The smell, by the way, was fantastic. But well, enough with the lyric. He didn't come for this. Is anyone at home? An aunt in her mid-50s peeked through the fence. What do you want? She asked unceremoniously. Can you tell me, is the owner of the house? Why do you need it, if it's not a secret? The neighbor frowned. Well, of course, it's no secret, Isabel smiled. I am a representative of the Women's Council. Now we have an action to help women who have returned from places of deprivation of liberty. What kind of help do you provide? Martina laughed. I also did time when it was my time. Maybe I need help? My God, the other one. The girl was horrified, but in response she only smiled, flipping through the prudently prepared notebook. No, unfortunately I did not receive any information about you. Only about your neighbor, Sofia Molinez. So how can I find her? But there was no need to look for anyone. Sofia herself left the neighbor's house, with whom she was staying. Is this Sofia Molinez? Isabel asked with a smile. Well, let's just say, she replied casually. Great, he smiled even wider. I need to talk to you, maybe you'll invite me to the house? I don't feel so good, sighed Sofia. The instinct of a person who was in the colony said that this dick had come with bad intentions. Why do you refuse immediately? The smile did not leave the face of the unwanted guest. But the girl is not so simple, thought Isabel. However, what's so surprising about that? So, said Sofia, if you want to talk to me, talk here. I have no secrets from my friend. But we need to discuss some details. I came here to offer financial assistance. Ah, that's the way it is, said the happy rival with a smile. And what kind of assistance? Yes, Martina interjected. It turns out that now they are helping those who have served their sentences. The women. Sophia laughed out loud. Assistance. Oh, I can't. So if you really want to help me, better with work. Money? Today there's money, but tomorrow there's none. Excuse me, where are you from? From the Women's Council, Isabel replied less kindly. Frankly, she no longer wanted to play the role of a nice young official. Elizabeth already understood that Sophia did not like her at all, and she found it harder and harder to talk to her every minute. Besides, there was no doubt that the girl didn't believe her for a second. So, was it worth continuing? Is it true? Sophia smiled. And the representatives of the Women's Council are clearly not in poverty. What a nice car, as if she were the wife of an oligarch. You can be sure by now that I will become her, Isabel said haughtily. The masks ripped off, played openly. The visitor realized with surprise that it was much easier. She looks at me and you, what do you expect? No, Alejandro's parents will never accept you, with the biography you have. Well, maybe my biography is not so impeccable, replied Sophia, but I would definitely not be ashamed. The Women's Council. Couldn't you come up with something smarter? Listen, my friend, said the hostess decisively. I don't know what you dreamed about, but Alejandro is mine, understand? He's mine. Well, if you're so sure of that, why did you come all the way out here? Sophia smiled. I always thought that ladies like you live in other places and don't travel in towns. You'll regret it, hissed Isabel. Remember that. After saying those words, he headed for his car. As soon as he vanished, the neighbors started laughing. But she really saw you as a rival, Martina commented, laughing. I don't know what he saw in me, Sophia laughed. I saw that she doesn't know how to control herself. And they laughed again. Isabel's visit did not unsettle Sophia at all. Rather, on the contrary, it gave the girl strength and self-confidence. If Alejandro's ex-girlfriend came to her, then everything was fine. Luck was definitely on her side. The girl was determined to fight for her happiness. But Isabel was beside herself with rage. Some aunt in jail had pulled her down from under the pedestal. Well, the war was on. Sophia decided not to tell Alejandro about his ex-girlfriend's visit. The less he knows, the better he sleeps. They got along well together, and everything else was not important. I don't like that we run into each other from time to time like teenagers, Alejandro once said. I want to be with you. Always. Sophia's heart raced and ached sweetly. Well, what girl doesn't dream of hearing such words? However, she understood that Alejandro's ex-girlfriend was right. It is unlikely that her parents will be delighted with a convict who has neither a house of her own nor a job. Well, why don't you say anything? Lover asked affectionately. Don't you want us to be together always? You know, let's come back to this conversation when I at least have a job, Sophia replied with a sigh. I don't want to come into the family with anything. Alejandro laughed. Please don't laugh, the girl said. It's very important to me. I think you understand everything yourself. Sophia wanted very much to be with Alejandro, but she was far from putting her lover before a choice, her or her family. And how to fight for happiness? Thought the dejected girl and decided to share this thought with Martina. You know, Sophia, if you are destined to be together, everything will be fine. You deserve happiness like no one else, the neighbor said thoughtfully. But it's possible that Alejandro's parents really don't accept me, sighed Sophia. This person, of course, is still trash, but she's a girl from their circle. She's spectacular, probably educated, it's not a shame to appear with her in public. But Alejandro chose you, not her, noted Martina. And if he really loves you, he will introduce you to his parents. It is difficult. Everything is going to be fine. Do you think so? Sophia asked incredulously, but hoping in her heart of hearts that Martina was right. Yes, I'm sure. But Sophia was not there. And there is no telling how it would have ended if an accident had not intervened. It's a pity it can't be called a happy accident. Finally, luck smiled on Sophia in terms of work. It was just a side job, but she was happy about it. The girl got a job as a courier in an advertising agency. It must be said that she was paid well and, moreover, every day. Sofia distributed advertising leaflets and, after receiving the money in the office, went shopping. Today she will treat her beloved to a really delicious dinner. Picking up a package of groceries, Sofia came out of the supermarket. 3 very repulsive-looking young men were approaching her. "Hey, do you have any cigarettes?" one of them asked cheekily. "I don't smoke and I don't advise you," Sofia replied independently and tried to dodge them. "Hey, that's brave, isn't it?" the other boy shouted. "I am the way I am." He pushed Sofia and the girl fell. And when she made an attempt to get up, already 3 of them started beating the poor girl. The last thing she remembered was a blow to the head and a scream from someone. "What's happening? Call the ambulance." Waking up in the hospital, Sofia remembered those who attacked her in the alley. About 5 minutes later, a doctor entered the room. The girl looked at him questioningly and the doctor asked, "How does it feel?" "My head hurts so much," Sofia complained. "And it makes me nauseous." "Well, concussion nausea is pretty normal," the doctor nodded. "You'll live, but there's something else." "And what is it?" "She is pregnant," smiled the doctor. "What? She's pregnant. Didn't you know?" Sofia shook her head. "It's still quite a short time," the doctor continued. "So, it is not surprising. What surprises me is another one. How did you not have a miscarriage, after such blows to the head and all over the body? Apparently, this baby is destined to be born." Sofia was surprised. No, of course, she knew where the babies came from, but it was all too unexpected. And again she had these unhappy thoughts about Alejandro's parents. My God, what will happen now? "Tell me, please, was my phone with me?" the girl asked the doctor. Yes, it was in her purse. So the bastards didn't attack her to rob her. I would like to call. Yes, of course, now I will bring your personal things. Martina responded immediately. "Sofia, where are you?" she shouted. "Alejandro and I are going crazy." "Is Alejandro with you?" Sofia asked excitedly. "Martina, my dear, put him on the phone, it's very important." "Yes, just now," answered the neighbor in a surprised yet alarmed voice. Something had happened to Sofia. She wasn't home yet, and that tone she had. "Sofia, where are you?" asked Alejandro. "What happened?" "I was attacked." "Attacked?" "Yes, I was attacked, but I escaped with a slight scare." "Well, thank God." With remarkable relief, he said. "Which hospital are you in? Martina and I are coming." "In the 3rd, in traumatology." "Alejandro?" "Yes, my love?" "Actually, there's something else I need to tell you." "Tell me." "Not by telephone." Upon hearing the news of his upcoming fatherhood, Alejandro was very happy. "Are you really happy?" asked Sofia. "What are you saying?" he exclaimed. "Of course, I'm glad." "What about your parents?" "What about my parents?" Alejandro shrugged his shoulders. "I'll talk to them today. My parents are great and understanding." Sofia shook her head in disbelief. Perhaps they were sympathetic. But not in the fact that their son, in whom they clearly had high hopes, decided to marry a convict. Nonsense. Is that how they say it in their circle? When Alejandro returned home, his parents were watching television and discussing something animated. "My son." Dona Manuela was happy. "You're late today. Are you going to have dinner?" "Of course he did," replied Alejandro cheerfully. "And very much so." "How nice," laughed the mother. "You are so happy today." "Yes, I am very happy," exclaimed Alejandro. "Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something. Would you like to have dinner first?" "Dinner can wait. My dear parents, I'm going to be a father." "Wow." Dona Manuela raised her hands. "Yes," confirmed the son. "Well, of course, we understand that now I, as a decent person, must marry." "This is really great news," exclaimed Mr. Lopez. "Isabel. And what does Isabel have to do with that?" Alejandro frowned. The parents were silent and looked at their son in confusion. From what they understood, Alejandro had no relationship with Isabel. So who is she, then, the mother of their future grandchild? This is the most wonderful girl in the world, the boy solemnly proclaimed. Remember, Uncle Alfredo told about the girl who found my military card? Oh my God! Exclaimed the mother. That night, for the first time, the parents showed no understanding. It couldn't be that their son was marrying a girl who had served her sentence. What is this noise? Is someone fighting? Sylvia came in cheerfully. The girl started dating a wonderful guy, she was in a very good mood and wished the same for others. Therefore, the conversation between her parents and her brother in elevated tones was not to her liking. Yes, your brother is getting married, sighed the mother. Isabel achieved her goal? Sylvia thought in surprise. Not with Isabel. As if she had heard her daughter's thoughts, Dona Manuela hastened to clarify. With whom? Let me tell you all about it. I will tell you, Alejandro said decisively. Sister, first you have to have dinner, I lost my appetite. Well, then I'll tell you my secret of the heart. Let's meet up. Just, I'm not hungry anymore. Jorge and I went to a cafe. He had all kinds of goodies. Besides, I can't wait to hear your heart secret. Well, my room or your room? It doesn't matter. Well, then I'll take a shower, and you come to me in half an hour. And the parents looked at their children and thought, how much our children have grown up. After hearing Alejandro's story, Sylvia realized who could have hurt Sofia. In reality, she never had any illusions about Isabel. Yes, Sylvia was friendly with her brother's ex-girlfriend, but they only went shopping, to clubs and beauty salons. Now the girl realized that she had never really liked Isabel. Too arrogant and self-confident. Besides, from time to time Sylvia heard rumors about the girl's too free behavior. However, this is her life. Another thing that is terrible, Sylvia, without knowing it, became an accomplice in the attack on a young pregnant girl. After all, she told Isabel all the information about the girl. What is it called? Organization of the crime? We should ask Uncle Alfredo. Well, now he'll tell his brother everything. Isabel? Alejandro was surprised. Are you sure? Well, I don't have direct evidence, but it seems that way. She waited the time for them not to think about her and started to act. Well, thanks for the information, sister, he said. But now I am more concerned about the attitude of my parents to my future wife. Yes, nodded Sylvia. But Alejandro, something tells me, everything will be fine. And then you have me. Thank you, sis, he said, hugging her. Well, what else would one have a sister for? Federico, well, you were always an intelligent and reasonable person, said Don Alfredo to his old friend. Well, why don't you like her? What did she do to you wrong? She, by the way, saved your son. The men sat on the Lopez's spacious balcony and drank brandy. The general acted as Sofia's advocate, and Don Federico was forced to admit that his friend was right. By the way, he and his wife never thanked the girl personally. Well, it's not her fault she's an orphan and an ex-convict. Don Alfredo continued with his exhortations. Well, she tripped once. This happens to everyone, doesn't it? In fact, it's not her fault at all. Do you really think I didn't make inquiries? I don't think so, the businessman shook his head. You're right, Alfredo. At the very least, we should get to know her. What am I saying? Mr. Ortega was pleased. But soon you won't have the chance. The girl is in the hospital now. She was attacked by some bastards, and the police are taking care of it. I personally have control of this matter. The general's word carries weight for the Lopez family. He is a family friend, Alejandro's godfather, and simply a good person. He is an authority for all family members. The doctor said that nothing threatens the health of Sofia and her unborn child, yet she had to stay in the hospital for a week. Well, she didn't mind. Where else would Sofia get this break? Alejandro came to see her every day, and Martina also visited her. And on the day of her discharge, a surprise awaited the girl. Alejandro arrived accompanied by a beautiful brunette with radiant green eyes and full lips. In the girl's hands was a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Hello, I am Alejandro's sister, so your future sister-in-law, smiled the girl, offering her flowers. My name is Sylvia. Sofia, she answered embarrassed. So that's how we met. And now let's go. We are already waiting. Sofia, completely bewildered, looked questioningly at Alejandro, but he just smiled and winked, which meant that everything would be fine. She followed Alejandro and his sister. A cherry-colored Mercedes was standing in the street, towards which Sylvia pulled her future sister-in-law. "Let's go." Sophia hesitantly stopped near the expensive car, but the girl laughed out loud. "Sit down now. Don't be afraid, no one will bite you." In the car sat a respectable man and a very beautiful and well-groomed lady, about 45 years old. "Well, Sophia, shall we go?" asked the woman with a smile. "Let's go." "Where to?" "Home," he answered kindly. Sophia lived in the Lopez house, but she did not forget Martina either. After all, she, like the general, extended a helping hand. "Are you inviting me to the wedding?" asked the former neighbor. "Or will you become a rich man's daughter-in-law and forget about me? You think highly of me," exclaimed Sophia. "Of course I will. And also, Martina, I want you to be the godmother of my unborn child." "With pleasure." Martina shed tears. Sophia became friends with Sylvia, who happily shared with her all the pre-wedding matters. The girls chose together a wedding dress, veil, shoes, and a bridal bouquet, and it was a lot of fun. "I always dreamed of having a friend like that," admitted Sylvia, as the girls were sitting in a cafe and eating a delicious pistachio ice cream. 3 weeks later, they celebrated a magnificent wedding. The belly was still not visible and the bride looked beautiful. "You're a fairy princess." Martina shook her head in admiration. After the wedding, the newlyweds moved into a 4-room apartment, given for the wedding by the groom's parents. 8 months passed unnoticed, and there were only a few days left before the birth of the Lopez family heir. Or rather, heirs. The ultrasound showed that Sophia and Alejandro would have twins. The prospect of having 2 grandchildren at once, of course, pleased Mr. and Mrs. Lopez, but the doctors said the birth would not be easy. Maybe it makes sense to send Sophia to give birth abroad? Dona Manuela offered her son. "Mom, I already told her the same thing." She spread her hands. "But Sophia doesn't even want to hear about it. She says she feels that everything will be all right." "She feels." The loving mother-in-law raised her hands. "Alas, something is unsettled in my soul." The doctors were right. The mother had a cesarean section. A boy and a girl were born. The babies were not threatened by anything, but the mother lost a lot of blood and was on the verge of death. "She needs an urgent transfusion," the doctor said. The mother has a rare blood type. They understand that in such a situation it is not so easy to find a donor. The young father and his family were in extreme confusion. There was not a single suitable donor among family and friends. Alexander, feeling completely helpless, was angry with himself, but there was nothing he could do. The general, who was returning from a business trip, called his friends and, hearing what had happened, said without hesitation, "Well, stop shedding tears. I'll help you. The thing is, I have the same blood type." And he added, shaking his head in surprise, "Wow, there are such coincidences. It seems I met this girl not by chance." Don Alfredo had no idea how right he would turn out to be. When the general donated blood, the doctor said, "Of course, I could be wrong, but I'm ready that you and this girl are close family." Senor Ortega looked at the doctor with surprise and he added, "I will say more, it is quite possible that you and she are father and daughter." The general was stunned. He was all sweaty. In fact, he had had extramarital affairs, for example, on vacation or on a business trip, so the doctor's assumption seemed ridiculous to him. And suddenly an old story popped up in Don Alfredo's memory. "You never know," he thought. "Let's do a DNA test," he said in a suddenly hoarse voice. "Well, just to be sure." "Yes, for God's sake," replied the doctor, looking at the stern general with curiosity. The test was ready in a short time. It was the merit of the Lopez family. Don Federico paid a good amount and did not have to wait long. "Probability of relationship is 99.9%, read Sophia. "I can't believe it." The general and the convict, who by the will of fate appeared in her life, actually turned out to be father and daughter. Sophia received a blood transfusion and now her life was out of danger. He sat on the hospital bed of his newfound daughter, thinking that their meeting in the military enlistment office was a true miracle. "Yes, I myself am in shock," nodded Don Alfredo. "But you immediately reminded me of someone, but I could not understand who it was." And when the doctor told me about our possible relationship, I realized who I had a love. And the general told his daughter his simple story. Don Alfredo, a military school graduate, had to go to a flashpoint, and Vera, his girlfriend, was trying to dissuade him. "My dear," pleaded the girl, "I beg you, stay. What if you die? I won't survive this." "So, you're suggesting that I sit behind your skirt while others die? Who do you think I am?" burst out young Alfredo. Then the young men fought very hard, but never reconciled. Don Alfredo went to a flashpoint, then he was injured. After a while, he got married, but the marriage lasted only a year and a half. It did not work out. Now I understand that at that time my dear Vera probably already had you under her heart, but she did not know how to tell me, said the general with a sigh. Apparently, she was afraid that I would think that she wants to tie me like a child. She was very proud. It's true, nodded Sophia. By the way, my Sophia, what's going on with your mother now? After a brief pause, Don Alfredo asked. Mom died, said the girl sadly. This happened shortly before I went to jail. I did not see my shame. Stop, daughter, said the general in a low voice, hugging his daughter. Whatever happens, the mother will always understand and forgive. Sophia after discharge and her father visited Vera's grave. That's the way things are, my dear Vera, Don Alfredo said thoughtfully. In my life I couldn't love anyone, or didn't I try? And now, in my last years, I found a daughter and two wonderful grandchildren, Maria and Andres. Now I will give up and spend time with my grandchildren. I didn't participate in raising my daughter, so at least I will with my grandchildren. Our grandchildren with you. Sophia was so moved by her father's speech that her eyes filled with tears. She buried herself in the general's chest and wept. Daughter, but this is not necessary, exclaimed Don Alfredo. And if your milk disappears, what will I tell my grandchildren? It won't go away. Sophia shook her head, smiling happily. After all, these are tears of joy because I have such a great dad. I'm sure Mom sees us and smiles. The girl looked at her mother's picture and it seemed to her that her mother's lips were quivering in a smile. You know, I'm sure of that too, the general smiled in response. Well, let's go now, they are waiting for us. The father and daughter approached the car where Alejandro and Sylvia were sitting. Alejandro was holding his son in his arms, and Sylvia was holding her niece, his favorite child. 3 years later, the general's birthday was celebrated in a big way. In addition to some family and friends, colleagues were also present at the celebration. Each guest eagerly awaited their turn to say a few warm words to the hero of the day, and when it was Federico's turn, he said, I never tire of thanking fate for bringing me this wonderful person, but I couldn't even think that we would also be related. And this is really a great honor for me, Alfredo, my friend. I congratulate you on your anniversary and offer you a drink so that our family ties grow stronger every day. We were brought together by fate itself, but it turned out that her gifts didn't end there. Damn, I'm already beginning to love this unpredictable lady. The twins sat on their grandfather's lap and disinterestedly pulled his hair. Little Mary and her brother Andrew didn't even think of moving, so the hero of the occasion was only happy. How he adored his grandchildren. Nobody believed until the end that General Ortega would resign, however, he did. Don Alfredo moved to a country house. Alejandro and Sofia often visited him and brought the children. The young parents knew that the children are happy here and their grandfather is even happier. By the way, in the life of the tough-looking but very kind general, there were changes. Once, walking through the village, he started a conversation with an attractive widow, Mrs. Irina. And then, as usual, began their meetings with cakes, evening walks and trips for mushrooms and berries. The beautiful lady of respectable age was also present at the celebration and proudly sat next to the hero of the day. And Sophia looked at her father and thought, what a life! For years ago, my father and I didn't know each other. And after we met, so many events and new acquaintances happened, Martina, Alejandro, our wedding and children, Dona Irina. Mr. Lopez is right, destiny is really unpredictable. If you like the story, please like and subscribe to the channel.